welcome back to another episode of Soft Faith. This week is going to be our last week of the Lenten series, and today we're going to be talking about Easter. And to be specific, not just what is Easter, but more specifically, why is Easter seen as a symbol of new life? So we'll get right into it today. It might be a shorter episode, I will say, plus just some housekeeping things at the end and whatnot. So let's get into it. Easter is the celebration of Jesus being risen from the dead, and it's celebrated in the spring, as we know, which is kind of an important point. Not really important, but a point that I want to make eventually. But anyways, Easter is where we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And with that resurrection, it's almost like a direct symbol of new life, but more specifically, Jesus being resurrected is our way of telling us that death didn't stop Christ. And in more general terms for us, sin doesn't have the final say. And where I want to get with this is that there's this idea of hope. And I guess you could say hope is a common theme in this celebration, because with this idea of hope, even after the worst moments or when we are in such a deep and dark point in our lives, something better will be coming out of that. And there's this TED Talk that I watched recently in one of my psych classes, but more so not the whole idea, but one of the points that the dude made was that you reach rock bottom, but when you reach that bottom, you can't go further down. You can only go up from there. So that's kind of the whole connection of that. When you reach a tough time in your life, there will always be hope for something greater. And sin, again, doesn't have that final say. That darkness isn't the last thing that you will ever see. So that is kind of where I'm going to go with why is Easter seen as a symbol of new life. Another thing I want to say is that the concept of spring and the idea that Easter and spring go together, because spring is seen as that sorry, my dog is in my room and also yawning very loud. But anyways, spring is seen as a rebirth, as a kind of, flowers are blooming, grass is getting greener, kind of life is turning more colorful, and, things are going to be okay, it's getting warmer, life is great. So it's kind of also with that connection that spring is symbolizing a rebirth of nature, of the earth around us and whatnot. Another thing I have noted here for Easter is that you can also see Easter as a rebirth of, the old self dying to become the new self. And that's kind of the whole idea of Lent, is that you learn about the ways that your old self is lacking. So by the time you get to Easter and by the time you get to the end of Lent, you realize that, hey, I can be different in these kinds of ways. Or say, for instance, you give up I don't know, I've been saying snacking a lot on this podcast, but say you give up a bad habit of yours, and then Easter time comes around, Lent is over, and you're like, hey, honestly, I could keep doing this. I don't have to keep on relying on this bad habit to characterize myself. So Easter can also be seen as a mark of, what's the word? There's a phrase for it, but it's like putting down the old self to turn into the new self. Now, during Easter, or during the season of Lent, in Christian belief, Jesus' death and resurrection is basically tied to saving people from sin. And basically, what I mean by that is that death is the paying or paying the price of sin. And then the resurrection is showing that sin isn't, like I said, the final say. But with that idea being in mind, Easter becomes about people getting a fresh start spiritually. Kind of like basically wiping the slate clean. And it kind of ties back into the idea of you realize what kind of life you could have when you're in that Lenten season. It's like the idea of, oh, I can be a really good person without having these bad habits kind of contribute to what kind of person I am. And that's basically the whole idea of having that fresh new start and uh, learning to become a stronger version of yourself. Now, I have an interesting thing here noted. When I was going through what I wanted to say on this episode, one of the things that would always come to mind every single year is what's with the Easter eggs and the Easter bunnies. Now, the as I've researched, the Easter eggs are a little bit more symbolic to Christians than I guess the Easter bunny. And the idea of the Easter bunny is a more paganistic tradition. But bunnies in general represent, again, it's an image of spring. It's an image of um, life getting greener. And also bunnies tend to, how to say, they rebirth, or not rebirth, they give birth a lot. And I guess it's kind of like the idea of, oh, it's a new start, baby animals are being birthed and whatnot. So that's what the bunnies. It's a little bit more vague of an explanation, but I did find this for the Easter eggs. And this is from a website called English Heritage. And it says eggs represent new life and rebirth, and it's thought that this ancient custom was absorbed into Easter celebrations. During Lent, when Christians fast to mark Jesus' time in the wilderness, eggs were one of the foods that people weren't allowed to eat, which I did not know that. So when Easter Sunday came around, tucking into an egg was a real treat. Various traditions and superstitions sprang up around the egg at Easter. Eggs laid on Good Friday were said to turn into diamonds if they were kept for 100 years, which is really interesting. Some thought that eggs cooked on Good Friday and eaten on Easter would promote fertility and prevent sudden death, and it became the custom to have your eggs blessed before you ate them. It was also said that if your eggs had 2 yolks in them, you'd soon become rich. In Devon and Cornwall, people used to play a game like conkers with their eggs, hitting them against each other until one of them cracked. Now, I do that. In our tradition, we do that. Um, where it would be like this tournament competition type of thing where you get, I think, one hit. I haven't played it in a long time, but you get one hit and you have to hit the other person's egg really hard, and if it cracks, then I guess like they lose. I don't really know what the symbol behind cracking the egg is, but basically it's like this game we would play with the egg is that um you have to hit it as hard as you can. If your egg cracks, you lose and they win. And then they go around finding other people's eggs that haven't been cracked. So that's pretty interesting to moi. And again, this is from an English website, so some English tradition there. Yeah, I think that's all I have for you. Some fun facts about the Easter eggs and the Easter bunny. And um as I close this episode out, like I mentioned before, I think I'm gonna be not ending the series here. Well, like yes, but I think I'm gonna be making lesson plans over like the next couple of months. Also to get caught up with school and whatnot. But I'll be making more lesson plans. And probably doing more of a rebranding thing. Um, Also because my next semester is gonna look like a little heavier, so I don't really know where we're gonna go with these episodes. might be posting once every couple of weeks or so, but I will be working on lesson plans so we can have more episodes. So I'm also not running around having to plan things last second. But yeah, so um that'll do it. I hope you guys had an amazing Lent. Can't wait for the next one. I'm always like once Lent ends, I'm like, okay, when can we have the next one already? But yeah, so stay blessed and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.